Hey, welcome back to the SNS College Football Podcast. This is the 2019 Bowl preview. We're going to quickly run down every bowl game that hasn't already been played. There's been like a few of them that have been played that nobody really cared about, but or maybe important to some. But we're going to go down the rest of these bowl games, including a more in-depth breakdown of the two playoff games, then maybe some of like the New Year's 6 games, whatever games that we have bets on. I think we'll get a little bit more heavy into. But Tolman, I'll let you kind of start off with like since you're kind of I guess like running this one in a way. So however you want to start it off, and then Addison and I will just kind of follow your lead.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do is just like go through the entire list of bowl games, starting from, I guess, the one that's happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we'll go in order through the through all the bowl games, and then we'll finish up with like the New Year's 6 bowl games, and then do an in-depth look into the college football playoff games.
Okay.
And so we're gonna just cover each bowl game. We're gonna give. I'm gonna ask you guys for your leans, thoughts on the total or the number, and then I'll give my thought on if it's the level of watchability. So it's either going to be not watchable, mildly watchable, or highly watchable for various reasons. Talk a little bit about why teams may or not be motivated for certain games, and we'll just get into it. So tomorrow's game is the Gasparilla Bowl. Not sure what that sponsor is. I think it's like a lawnmower company.
Yeah, I think so.
Played in Tampa, Florida. This is Marshall versus UCF. Nick, any thoughts?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do, as Tolman mentioned, we're going to kind of give like a quick thought, each of us, if we even have a thought on the game as far as if there's like a quick matchup type of thing, like on the field type of X's and O's, or if like, we have a lean or a bet. What I'm going to do, though, is I kind of went through all these games. I'm just going to give what I have as my power rating, but then give which way I would lean if I had to, if I do, in fact, have a bet. Gasparilla Bowl, I make this game Central Florida minus 20.5. So I think the line's a little short. The only thing here is I question their motivation in this spot. UCF the last few years has been playing for a lot more as far as like undefeated seasons, New Year's 6 bowls. Doc Holliday has actually been one of the best coaches against the spread historically in bowl games. He just seems to always have his teams ready to play. So even though the line's a little short of what I would make it, I actually would lean Marshall in this spot purely based on lack of motivation by UCF.
Addison, do you have any thoughts or leans on this game?
These first few bowls, I honestly don't know shit about, but I would go UCF.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to be there, they're definitely they're 3 touchdowns better in my opinion. I mean, they're definitely the better team.
Yeah, it's weird for them too. It's because it's kind of like it probably doesn't even really feel like a bowl game because it's in Tampa, so
right.
It's not really much of a trip for them anyway.
Right.
So I don't know. It is kind of weird for a weird spot for UCF, I guess. But I don't know. I just think they're definitely the better team. So
yeah.
Watchability, I would say, is definitely low on this one. You got 15-point spread. You got a couple of group of 5 teams. So
right.
Yeah, I lean UCF here. It is down to 15.5. I think it's come down a little bit, so maybe some action on Marshall. Really, the only reason I'm not betting this is because I've watched Marshall twice this year. They gave Boise State a tough time. They gave Louisiana Tech a tough time. They actually won that game.
Right.
So 2 times I've seen them with my eyes. They seemed a little feisty, but I would lean UCF. This game is in the it's like not a watchable game for me. So I'm not going to make an appointment to do that. I think UCF's better on both sides of the ball. I think they'll definitely win. If you have any bowl pools out there, take them as a high confidence win.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. So okay, moving on to the Christmas Eve game. It's going to be played in Honolulu. BYU versus Hawaii. Addison, any thoughts on this one?
It's funny how Hawaii always plays at home for bowl games, but I would go BYU -2 here.
Nick, did you bet this one?
Yeah, I took BYU -2. I make the game BYU -4. They are a lot healthier now on both lines. I know defensively they got a few guys back that have been banged up through the second half of the year. They also are actually pretty healthy at quarterback for the first time in like 6 weeks. The thing about this game is that it's funny because, as Addison mentioned, Hawaii getting the home game for the bowl game. Funny enough, Hawaii, there's a big misconception that they have a huge home field advantage on the island. They really have performed very poorly against the number, like historically the last 3 years, last 5 years at home. Like they really, it doesn't check out as far as them having a home field advantage. And this is actually like fertile recruiting ground for BYU. So I actually think that they're going to put a lot of effort into this game. So I do like BYU to cover that short number there.
Nick, a couple things about that too. BYU has a campus on Hawaii.
They do, yeah, that regional campus. Yeah.
So yeah, they do get a lot of guys from the islands, and Hawaii. What a lot of people think as like the advantage, the travel, obviously. Well, whatever little advantage that gives, like there's even less in this situation where BYU's got a lot of time off, and it's not like they're flying there on a short week or anything. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think that the home edge here for Hawaii isn't really going to be that significant.
Yeah.
Yeah. BYU is actually one of the most traveled teams, just being an independent. They've kind of had to go everywhere this year.
Right.
And of course they have a campus on Hawaii.
Yeah.
If you're a Polynesian island, there's going to be a LDS presence, of course.
Right.
Yeah. So I actually lean Hawaii on this one. I looked in this game a little bit. This is definitely watchable for me. Maybe BYU's defensive line's a little bit healthier, but just both teams' defensive lines metrics are atrocious, and I think that there's the potential for a lot of points to be scored in this game. Hawaii turns the ball over a lot, so not going to bet the number, but I did take the over 64 here.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, watchable because I think there's a potential for a lot of points.
Yeah, and Addison and I have talked about this before. This is just me being weird, but there's certain like stadiums or fields that just appeal to me more on my television, and Hawaii is just one of them. Like I just like watching games that are there for some reason. So like I don't know, but yeah, from like X's and O's, I think it should be a pretty entertaining game. So I would say this is a game that I will be tuning into for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with the watchability. This one's a pretty watchable game. I generally like watching Hawaii games anyway if I happen to be up when they're playing.
Yeah, right.
I think their games are entertaining. Nick made the point about their stadium. I guess it's just the weather and the fact that it's always like day when it's night here.
Yeah.
That adds to the that effect. But and also, probably just Christmas Eve, probably not doing much else at night. So yeah.
Yeah, just hope that it's over before Santa comes down the chimney, so you get your presents. Yeah.
Right.
All right. So next one. This is going to be a fun one to talk about, but we've got the Independence Bowl in Shreveport, Louisiana. We've got Louisiana Tech, a virtual home game for them. Ruston, Louisiana is about 45 miles to the east of Shreveport against our beloved Miami Hurricanes. So you got, I'll go first on this one. You got the Canes with all of their swag traveling to Shreveport, Louisiana. Shreveport is the most populous city in the Texarkana region. For those of you that don't know, that's Louisiana, Arkansas, and Texas that share a border. It's on the Red River, and TripAdvisor has the #1 attraction for Shreveport as an art museum. So, a lot of fun could be had by those culture-loving Canes.
Yeah.
Because the Canes for me are I think the number one least motivated team here. They often do not show up to bowls, especially if they're going up to Shreveport, where I don't think there's any reason for them to care. I strongly lean Tech at +6. I think Tech could actually win the game on the field. But it is watchable for me because I just like seeing Miami fail.
Yeah. Some quick notes. I mean, I think you pretty much nailed it on the head. I make this game Miami -12.5, but the line is just telling you everything you need to know about how much Miami does not give a fuck about this game. This opened, I believe, at 10.5 down to 6 now. So a lot of sharp money on Louisiana Tech, and for good reason. The thing with these bowl games, I love doing this pod each year because there's so much more that goes into these games, trying to cap them just because of where they're at. What do you want to be there? What date it is, and that's an important factor in my opinion here. It's going to be December 26th. Miami is not going to want to be in Shreveport, Louisiana for Christmas, and I just feel like they're going to get into some shenanigans. I don't know what it's going to be, but they're definitely not going to want to be there. I know Louisiana Tech would love to have a win against, the U. Even though the number is well short of what it should be, I just think it's actually about right as far as, how motivated I think these teams are. So I actually would lean Louisiana Tech in this spot and definitely think they're a live dog. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I think Miami is probably one of the least motivated teams in all of bowl season, and I would lean Louisiana Tech too. I just looked up I wanted to know what the Shreveport weather is supposed to be on Thursday.
Yeah.
So it looks like a high of 71 and a low of 56. If the low was going to be 50 or less, I would just take Louisiana Tech money line because Miami never wins when it's like 50 or less.
Yeah.
But I think Louisiana Tech's definitely got a shot in this game. As far as watchability, I like these kind of games where you've got a team like Miami going up against a group of 5 team, like a team that could beat them. I think that gives a little more entertainment factor there. So, and like Tolman said, Miami, you never know what you're going to get from them this year. Definitely like a mistake-prone team that can be kind of comical to watch at times. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So the next bowl is same day, December 26th. We've got the Quick Lane Bowl playing in the home of the Lions in Detroit. We've got Pittsburgh versus Eastern Michigan. Addison, any thoughts on this game?
This game sucks.
I need to look up. I don't know anything about Eastern Michigan.
The bear loves them. Loves them apparently.
I was leaning Eastern Michigan +11 just because if I'm getting that many points against Pitt, I'm probably going to take it. No matter who it is, really. So yeah, I would definitely lean Eastern Michigan here. Nick?
I don't care about this game at all. I mean, I make the game Pitt -12.5. There's no value in the number, I don't think. I think the reason that Pitt's actually getting a little bit of love is that, if I remember correctly, and I don't really care enough to look this up, I think Pitt could have a pretty big havoc mismatch. They create a lot of havoc on D, and I think Eastern Michigan lets a lot of guys in the backfield. So there could be an issue there for Eastern Michigan. But like Addison said, should Pitt really be giving double digits to like anybody right now? I don't really know. I might lean. I might consider the under actually in that game, but no play for me. I just don't think there's value in the number.
Yeah, this is
this game is not watchable. Also,
this is an absolute pass for me. This is not watchable, and I actually had this one as my least watchable bowl game.
Yeah, it's
so this
awful.
To me was the worst.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. It's got to be pretty far down the list, just because for one, I don't like watching Pitt
at all.
I don't like seeing Newsy on TV, and Pitt's just like an ugly team to watch. So
yeah,
totally agree.
I think the next one will be a little more interesting. December 27th in Annapolis, Maryland, we've got the Military Bowl. Mac Brown in North Carolina versus Temple. Nick, we'll do your thoughts first.
Yeah, I actually think this is a pretty watchable game. I think both teams are going to want to be there. I like actually watching. Well, at least this year, I like watching both of these teams. I actually got to see them both play a few times. I make the game UNC minus 2.5, so I think there could be a little bit of value on Temple just based on the number alone. However, this is one of the rare times that I kind of go against my numbers. I actually would lean UNC here because I think that they actually have the ability to create some big plays, and Temple against some teams that were as explosive, if not more explosive than UNC, they had a tendency to allow some big plays through the air, and I think Howell might find some success there. So I'm going to pass on it because I don't think there's really value in the number necessarily, but if I had to bet it, I actually do think I would take UNC here.
Addison?
Nick, I agree with you on Carolina. Just the kind of season they've had, big turnarounds, Mac Brown's first year. Getting to a bowl is a big accomplishment for them. Yeah. So I think they're going to be really motivated to win this game and just continue to build on what they've done this year. Mac, he's doing well in recruiting. He wants to continue the momentum that the program has right now. So I just think that UNC is going to go all out, try to win this game.
Yeah, I think we all agree here. Teams are even. This is definitely a watchable game, and I think it sounds like we all lean North Carolina. I think it's minus 4.5 now because of the motivation factor and the program that Mac Brown's trying to build. So we'll move on to the next one, which is going to be the Pinstripe Bowl in Yankee Stadium. This is on December 27th. We've got Sparty versus Wake Forest. I'll start off on this one. I have a pretty strong opinion. This one is absolutely not watchable to me. I'm just tired of Sparty's season. It's been incredibly shitty. I'm tired of D'Antonio being somewhat lifeless. I'm tired of the shitty ACC. Even though Wake Forest won 8 games, I just didn't think they were impressive in any way, shape, or form. So this one's not watchable. I did no feel at all for the number. I actually did bet the just under 50, because I just think it's going to be a bad game with two uninspiring teams. Addison, I'll let you from there.
Yeah, I'm just laughing because I agree, and just some more things that add into the unwatchability factor. I think for one, it's a baseball stadium. Yeah. 2, the weather is probably going to suck, and just the way Michigan State plays, I can't believe the total is at 50. So the under is probably something that I'm going to pull the trigger on here. I don't know. It's really hard for me to lay points with Michigan State this year. I mean, I guess something that goes into it is Wake Forest did struggle the last month of the season. After a pretty good start, they really sucked the last month. But yeah, it's really just hard for me to lay points with Michigan State this year. I'd probably lean Wake Forest. I'm not really confident in that. I do like the under though. So if that's something, if I want to make a play, I would probably do that in this game.
Yeah, it's funny. I was putting together my notes for this pod the last couple of days, and also making some bets along the way. I took the under at 50, and then I checked my bet slips, and I had already taken the under at 50 2 weeks ago, when the lines first came out. I forgot about it, so I have 2 tickets on under 50.
Perfect. Yeah. Not a whole lot else to add. I make the game. Where are my notes at here? I make it actually Sparty minus 5, but I really, Sparty underachieved this year relative to what I think their team goals were, and they had some pretty lofty goals from reading their preseason stuff. And the thing, like Addison mentioned, Wake being kind of shitty towards like the last quarter of the year. They did have a lot of injuries, especially at like wide receiver. Their depth chart is reading as Jamie Newman and Scotty Washington are both going to be back for this game. So um, it's kind of a public play, but it's one of the rare times that I actually would agree with the public. I think I would lean Wake, and it's kind of what Addison said. If I want to wrap it up with a really simple thought, I just don't want to lay points with Sparty. I don't know if they want to be in this game. I think Wake is going to make enough plays to keep the game close and possibly win as a dog. But I totally agree with you guys. I think that uninspiring game. I think the under would definitely be worth looking at.
Yeah, we'll go next. We'll go right down the street from my house to Houston. We've got just the plain old Texas Bowl.
Yeah.
Not sure who the sponsor is, but I'm sure it's like
probably just
AutoZone or something.
I think it's the Academy Sports plus Outdoors Texas Bowl.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like there's like an Academy Sports on like sporting goods store on like every strip mall in Houston, which has like millions of them. So, but we've got this is going to be on December 27th. We've got Texas A&M versus Oklahoma State. So some local flavor here, old Big 12 matchup. Nick, your thoughts?
Yeah, just quickly, I make this game pretty much exactly what it's at A&M -7, and it opened at 4. I was able to grab A&M a couple weeks ago at -4.5. A&M is a team that, yes, they are 7-5, so I think they get a lot of shit for being one of those teams that people are like, oh, people are saying this team's really good, but they're 7-5, but their schedule was really brutal. I think they are a pretty solid team. And I like their ability to simply just move the chains efficiently against a very bad Oklahoma State defense. And I actually think A&M can contain Hubbard pretty well. I mean, I think he's playing in this game from everything I read. I tried to research that a little bit more, but obviously
sounds like he is, Nick.
Yeah, so that's if you like Oklahoma State, then obviously that's good for you. But I do think that A&M is the better team here. I think a lot of times too when I have like a motivated SEC team against like a Big 12 team that has a really bad defense, I just tend to lean towards the SEC team. So I do think A&M being in their home state where I think they might have some recruiting battles with teams like Oklahoma State. I think it's a game that they are going to be motivated for, so I like them in that spot.
Yeah, Addison?
I like Oklahoma State actually here. I would take the points. Kind of the reverse of what Nick was saying about A&M. They have a really tough schedule, and I think they get a lot of credit for losing to bad teams.
They do, yeah.
I don't really like that much about A&M, so you and I have different thoughts on A&M. Spencer Sanders is actually supposed to play, which I was surprised about because I thought he was done for the year.
He was supposed to be, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it sounds like he's 100%, so I'm kind of banking on that too. And watchability for me, this one, I like these old, whenever it just happens to you get two teams that have some history against each other in a bowl game. I like that. Obviously, they used to be, the same conference,
right?
So that adds to the watchability for me. So yeah, I think it's an intriguing game, and I would lean Oklahoma State here.
Yeah, starting to get into some juicier Power 5 versus Power 5 matchups. The thing that I take away from this game is like both of these teams performed exactly how I expected them to be this year. I feel like A&M, just given their schedule, was going to be a 7-5 team. Oklahoma State, they're always 8-4. So I'm not sure what the motivation is here for either team. Like I just kind of feel like they are what they are. A&M maybe has some young talent, so I can see some motivation there. But overall, the Pokes, they're on my no bet list. I always seem to get burned by them, so I'm just gonna stay away from this game. But it's mildly watchable for me.
Yeah,
I was really hoping that Texas would end up in this game, though.
We'll talk about that later.
Pretty cool if you get Texas versus A&M in Houston.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, cool. All right, so same day, December 27th, we've got Classic Bowl. We've seen some excitement over the years. The Holiday Bowl in San Diego. We've got Iowa versus USC. Addison, start with you.
This is one of my most watchable games outside of the playoff. Actually, I'm intrigued because you've got two totally different styles clashing here. USC and Iowa. Obviously Iowa, pretty defensive team. USC's got the playmakers on the outside. Minnesota, their receivers did have quite a bit of success against Iowa, but the thing about Iowa's D is they're pretty good at keeping teams out of the end zone. And even though Iowa hasn't seen a lot of teams like with the firepower of USC this year, USC on the flip side hasn't seen many defenses, as good as Iowa. So I'm always intrigued when you've got teams coming together like that, which way it's going to go. And then people always think of Iowa as like a slow, plodding team, and USC is like the opposite, like more of a flashy team. I think it's an interesting game. I think a team like Iowa, I think whenever they go up against a program like USC, there's some added motivation there, even though USC didn't have a great year.
It's funny. It's like right down the 5 from USC, but I feel like the crowd's going to be more Iowa because USC fans don't care.
Yeah, right. And Iowa fans are going to want to travel for this one.
They're going to love being in San Diego
get out of
this time of year. Yeah.
I don't know, and I think it's kind of a coin flip game too, so it's hard to say either way. I would probably lean Iowa, but I think it's an interesting game.
Yeah, Nick.
I make this game exactly what it is. Iowa -2. I'm gonna pass on it just because everything Addison said. I don't know which team's going to assert their style of play more. I totally agree. I think this is one of the most intriguing games. I'm very excited to actually watch this game just because I love the contrast stylistically. I actually think that I would lean SC here because kind of what Addison pointed out, like anytime, it's only been like 1 or 2 times maybe that Iowa has seen anything that's close to like the type of athletes on the perimeter that USC is going to put out there. And usually I would consider maybe leaning the other way more often than not with the team that like a program that usually prides itself on strong line play, like physical style of football. But Iowa hasn't really been overly dominant on either line this year. Like I think their defense has been pretty good. But how you can beat USC this year is running on them, especially on the perimeter, and Iowa hasn't really been that great of a running team. So I actually do lean USC here, but I really do not think I'm going to be making a bet here. I just want to watch the game.
Yeah, I'm going to be more on Addison's side with my lean.
Yeah.
It's going to be a pass for me. I typically stay away from games involving USC. But I would lean Iowa just because Iowa tends to slow teams down like USC. I handicap this game the way I did when they played Minnesota. I think could be like a very, very comparable result.
Yeah.
But highly watchable for me, and I'll definitely be making an appointment to tune into this one. And speaking of contrasting styles, our next game we've got the Cheez-It Bowl in Phoenix.
I love this game.
We go from a result that was 7-3 last year to the most extreme contrast of styles of any bowl games.
Yeah.
And that's why I have this one as this one's my most watchable, kind of the lesser before New Year's type bowl games. And in these situations I tend to go with we've got Washington State, air raid offense. You got Air Force, strong running game, just triple option. I tend to go with the air raid just because if Pirate gets ahead, I think it's difficult for Air Force to come back. But on the concern is Washington State's defense disciplined enough to stop Air Force? But I'm actually bet the Pirate +3, and this is my most watchable of the lesser bowl games.
Yeah, I guess I'll go. Or go ahead, Tolman.
No, that's it. Okay. I was throwing it to you.
Yep, totally agree. I love this game. It's it's just so extreme as far as like the contrasting styles of play. I actually make this game Washington State -4.5, so I saw a lot of value in Washington State at +3, and I did decide to pull the trigger. The reason that I believe the line is the way that it is that Leach has sucked terribly in bowl games, and there definitely is a concern that Washington State is not going to be able to stop Air Force on the ground. However, I agree with you, Tolman. I think if the weather is going to be at least decent, then I tend to lean on the air raid in these spots because of pretty much what you said, and I think Air Force is pretty exploitable in their back end on defense. So I think Washington State's going to be able to pass at will, and like I said, I took them at +3. I actually have a play on the over at I took it at 67.5. I'm not exactly sure what it's at now, or maybe I have it at 67. I don't remember, but I really don't think either team's going to stop each other. I think there's going to be a lot of points in this game. Wouldn't be shocked if Air Force won it, obviously, but I do think that Leach is actually going to get a bowl win here.
Yeah, you guys pretty much said it. I don't think either defense is going to be able to stop the other teams. What you mentioned, Nick, about the Pirates struggling in bowls, there's a little added motivation there on his side. So I think I would lean Washington State here, probably high scoring unless Air Force, is more methodical. But if they can hit some big plays, it's going to be really high scoring. So yeah, it definitely ranks pretty high watchability.
Yeah, I think right now we've got Holiday Bowl and Cheez-It Bowl is kind of the top two of the lesser bowl games before we start getting into the New Year's Eve and the New Year's Day stuff. But
and that night, I'm looking forward to that night too because it's going to be the night before the playoff games, and there's some good games on that night to get us ready.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so next we've got on the day of the college football playoff, we've got a little primer before we get into it. Got the Camping World Bowl in Orlando, Florida. It's going to be Iowa State versus Notre Dame. Addison, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'm leaning Notre Dame here. I thought that after the Michigan game, they could have, their season could have gone downhill after that, and they actually played pretty well after that. So the fact that they didn't just fold up after that makes me think that they'll be, more into this game than otherwise, like I would have expected. So Iowa State, I do think they're better than their record. I think it's going to be a close game, but I would lean Notre Dame.
Yeah, Nick?
Yeah, I make this game Notre Dame -2.5. So yeah, maybe a little bit of value on Iowa State. Matt Campbell's teams are usually ready for their bowl games. The thing is, Iowa State, they are not a great running team. They've had trouble with that this year. So I actually think Notre Dame is going to make them a little bit too one-dimensional. And I think that they are going to make enough plays on offense to win this game. But I do think it's going to be close to what this line is set at. So I just, no value here. Possibly a pretty good game to watch, though.
Yeah, it's only mildly watchable for me. I think the teams are pretty even. I do agree with Addison. Iowa State's definitely better than their record.
Yeah.
But where I disagree with Addison is just going to question Notre Dame's motivation here. I feel like they should be in a better bowl than this, and maybe this Camping World Bowl has been elevated in terms of stature, but I was looking at a couple other spots that I thought maybe they could have been in. So you could make the case for Iowa State if Notre Dame just doesn't want to be there, but it's going to be a pass for me.
Okay.
So sandwiched into some of these more interesting of the lesser bowls, we've got the First Responder Bowl in Dallas. This will be on December 30th. So, after the college football playoff, it's going to be Western Michigan and Western Kentucky, a couple directional schools. Nick, any thoughts on this one?
I hate this game. I mean, it's just like I love college football so much that usually I can watch like almost any game, but I really looked at this game and tried to like find anything I could be excited about, and there's just nothing. As far as just like from a betting angle, I have the game as a pick'em, so I usually would lean with Western Michigan as a 3.5 point dog, but Western Kentucky can actually do some things defensively to stifle them. Western Kentucky actually has a really good front seven, so I think they, if they can make Western Michigan a little one-dimensional, then maybe they can, come out with the win here. But this is a hard pass, and I will not watch one. I won't watch one snap of this game. There's no way.
Addison, any?
I mean, sorry, not to be like
thoughts?
so negative, but like it's just such a terrible game.
No, I mean, we have when a bowl game sucks, we have to talk about it.
We still got to talk about it.
Yeah.
I really don't have any opinions on this game. I'm going to go Western Michigan because I've seen them play this year one time.
Yeah.
It was week 1 against Michigan State. It wasn't. Wait, no, that was against Tulsa. Never mind. I haven't even seen them play this year. Yeah, I just take the points. Fuck this game.
Yeah.
So pass on all accounts for me. I had this as not watchable, my second least interesting bowl game. So let's just move on. Okay. So same day. Hopefully it'll get a little bit better. We've got December 30th. We've got the Music City Bowl in Nashville. We've got ACC versus SEC, Louisville versus Mississippi State. I have this one as mildly watchable. I think Louisville's a program that's building momentum under Coach Satterfield. I think they overachieved this year, or they definitely exceeded expectations. They're moving in the right direction. You got them versus you got an SEC team that you think SEC physicality, but Mississippi State wasn't all that impressive this year. I actually bet Mississippi State. I got them at -3. I just feel like the way Louisville, just cannot handle any, physicality that Kentucky offered. I feel like this game could go the same way. So Mississippi State -3 in a somewhat watchable game. Nick?
Yeah, I make this game. Where are we at here? Music City Bowl. Yeah, I make this game Mississippi State -2. So I see the line. It kind of depends on the book. I see it at 4, I think, in some books, down from 5.5. So I see a little bit of value, possibly with Louisville, with their ability to create explosives against the leaky Mississippi State D. However, I think Mississippi State, you could argue the same thing on the other side of the ball. So yeah, like Tolman, if you like Mississippi State, then obviously 3 is a pretty key number. 3 or better is, if you like Mississippi State. If you like Louisville, I would take it now before it possibly gets bet down to 3.5, 3. But yeah, hard pass. I do think the game will actually be pretty watchable though, just because I think there will be some points put up. So yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see if a team like like ACC team like Louisville, a little bit more on the finesse side, can handle a physical SEC team.
Yeah.
Addison, do you have any thoughts?
Total 63.5. I'm just thinking if it ends up that high scoring, I would expect that to favor Louisville.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, their ability to create explosives. I just don't see Mississippi State being able to keep up in that kind of scenario. So, yeah, if the pace ends up, that way, then I would say edge Louisville. So, I mean, that's the way I would go is Louisville +4, which is what it's at right now.
Yeah. So next we've got another Power 5 matchup on the same day. We've got December 30th, the Red Box Bowl, and my least favorite stadium and place in the country, Santa Clara, California, literally in the middle of nowhere of Silicon Valley, where they're just not watching football. They are drinking wine and talking about investments. We've got Cal versus Illinois. These are Addison's two favorite teams. So
Yeah.
I'll let him give you all a very deep breakdown on this one.
Yeah, well, I do love Cal, but whenever they're laying 6.5, I got to go the other way. And also, Illinois, is there any team in the whole bowl season that wants to be in a bowl more than Illinois? Probably not, because no one expected Illinois to be in a bowl.
I can tell you that D'Antonio is jacked to be in the bowl that he's in and is going to take that real seriously. But no, Illinois actually probably wants to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I do enjoy watching Cal's defense, but the way they play offense, it's just like whenever Michigan State's laying points. It's really hard for me to lay points with Cal. I like to bet them a lot when they're an underdog, but I'm surprised that they're this big of a favorite, really. So I would go Illinois here, and there's a lot of motivation on their side as well. So it's what's funny is it's basically a home game for Cal, but it's not like anyone cares anyway. So that doesn't really matter. So
So I'll set the over. So the over under here is 43. So how about over under 43% stadium capacity? Any thoughts on that total?
Under.
Yeah.
I would say under.
Strong under. Probably getting
this is where
minus 175 off on that one.
Yeah.
For the Pac-12 championship game, they can't even get that many people in the stadium.
Yeah.
So this will be 20% full.
Yeah, dude, I would be surprised if 15,000 people show up for that game.
Yeah. They'll probably all be Illinois fans.
Yeah. Wait, they have fans? I guess they do, yeah. Straley's kind of a fan. But yeah, Addison, your surprise about the line is valid in my opinion because I make this game Cal minus 1.5. So I was able to grab Illinois at +7 at minus 114. Cal's strength on D is more in the back end. And even though Illinois has not been quite as successful on the ground this year as they were last year, that's still the strength of it's what they want to do. And like we said, I think the biggest thing with capping bowl games is motivation. Who wants to be there? Where are they playing? I definitely think that Illinois is going to put forth all-out effort in this game, and I actually think that they have a really good chance to win it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of value in the number there.
Yeah, this game is actually going to go on my not watchable list. I just think both offenses are pretty bad. If I had to lean anywhere, I'd favor the under, the actual total under 43. But I don't really have an interest in watching this game where no one's going to be there. Good story that Illinois might care, but I feel like this game could be last year's Cheez-It Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another game that involved Cal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Moving on to the Alamo Bowl. This will be on New Year's Eve, December 31st. It's going to be played in San Antonio. We've got Texas versus Utah. I have this one as one of the more highly watchable games. I took the over here, over 54.5. I think for two reasons. I think Utah has had some defensive flaws exposed against Oregon, and I also think that Texas just isn't going to care to be here. I feel like their expectations on their season was a lot higher. So I think there's a potential for a lot of points here with teams that just the matchup's good, but the bowl fit I feel like it's just not where they want it to be. So I'll take the over. Nick, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting one. I make Utah minus 11.5, but I think the line is actually pretty accurate here because, Oregon basically ripped their hearts out of their chest and pissed on them. So I don't really know if Utah. I don't know if they went from playoff to Alamo Bowl. I mean, and you could argue that Texas had lofty goals as well, but Texas realized that they weren't going to meet those goals 5 weeks ago. So I think if you you have a bunch of young kids. Recency bias could be a factor here. I actually lean Texas as a dog that I think could outright win. As far as like just X's and O's, I think Texas actually could be able to find some success through the air versus Utah. We've seen Utah against some elite receivers this year, and they haven't done very well. So I actually think if I had to play the game, I would take Texas. I'm going to pass on it, though, just because let's say like Utah shows up and they for some reason do want to be there, then I think they're definitely better than Texas. So hard pass, but if I had to take a side, I actually would consider just taking Texas money line, to be honest.
Addison?
I would go Utah. I mean, Nick mentioned he thinks Utah is the better team. I do as well. Tolman, I agree with you. I could see this being high scoring. I think that Utah, I think they'll cover, and I think it'll be an entertaining game as well. Nick makes a good point about Utah's motivation, how far they've fallen. Like, they could have been in the playoff. I don't know. It's hard to say. It could go either way, I guess. They've still had a good season. It's like, sometimes if you've had a good season, just getting a bowl win, like whoever it's against, to cap it off, is a positive. So maybe they can, turn it around for this game. And is there an edge either way in terms of motivation? Because Texas had a shitty season, so it's like maybe they don't care. So maybe there's not much of an edge either way in terms of the motivation. So that also helps me lean towards Utah on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dispute that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't dispute that. I mean, I mentioned I think it's totally possible that you could argue that Texas still doesn't give a shit, even if they did realize their season wasn't going to be what Sam Ehlinger thought it was going to be, with the whole like we're back bullshit. But I just figured like Utah just very recently like biggest game in their program's history to go to the biggest stage, and now they're just in the Alamo Bowl. Like I don't know. That's why I kind of just felt like I was going to lean. And Texas has been pretty beat up the last quarter of the season, and they're going to be a lot healthier now. Herman as a dog, that's always something that's noteworthy. But Addison, I totally agree. We love Kyle Whittingham. We think he's a really good coach. I mean, if he can get those boys off the mat, then Utah could smoke these guys. I think Utah's a very good team. They just played a very poor game against Oregon.
Yeah, so if Sam Ehlinger is like the kid in the group project that like really gives a fuck about the outcome and getting a good grade on this group project, and no one else cares. I think if you remove Sam Ehlinger, I have them as Texas as my number 2 least motivated team in this spot, but I will definitely tune in. This is highly watchable for hopefully see some points. And Addison, I agree with you too. I think Utah's a better team.
Yeah, I definitely like the matchup on paper. So yeah, definitely. Out of these New Year's Eve games, I really like this one.
Yeah. All right. Next is going to be the Belk Bowl in Charlotte. We've got Kentucky versus Corey's alma mater, Virginia Tech.
Oh, here we go, Corey. Yeah.
Yeah, Nick, I'll start with you. You sound excited about this one.
Nope, not at all. I make this game Virginia Tech -2, so like no value here. I would lean Kentucky just because I think Fuente sucks and Stoops doesn't. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Here's the thing, and I think we've talked about this within our thread and possibly on one of the last few pods. Is that Mr. Fumbles was able to do his thing against Virginia Tech when Virginia Tech knew that was the only player they had. Here we have a similar scenario with Lynn Bowden, who is the only player that UK basically has. They're running pure, zone read every play with him. And we've talked about him. He was our winner, one of our winners of the year, whatever he won. If you guys can go back on the previous pod on the award show, we gave him a lot of love. So, I like Stoops. I like the talent they have there right now. And relative to like the rest of the SEC, it's not great, but I like them in this spot. It's kind of like one of those gut feeling things. If I have to play it, I'm taking UK money line.
Addison.
Yeah, it's Kentucky's just a hard. I mean, but they've been really good against the spread.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of catching up now. The fact that they're just a 3-point dog. But yeah, I would probably go Kentucky. For the reasons Nick mentioned, and I don't know.
There's not really much to say about this game. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I also lean Kentucky. So we'll move on to also on New Year's Eve, I guess during the afternoon, we've got the Sun Bowl in El Paso, Texas. Arizona State versus Florida State. Addison, you have the floor.
Who's Florida State's coach again? I don't even know.
I think Odell Haggis is guest coaching, which could he inspires Florida State players, so that there could be some motivation on Florida State side.
I agree totally.
Yeah, and I actually think they've been playing better too, so I'd probably go Florida State here. That just makes me. I want to look up the weather here now too, because usually this game is like really cold. Like you remember that one year that Miami and Notre Dame played in it, and it was like snowing, and Miami got crushed.
Which is weird. El Paso's it's a weird place, high elevation, kind of in the desert.
Yeah, but then you've got two warm weather teams. I mean, Arizona State actually has to play in cold weather places, though. So I don't know. I'm googling the weather. So you guys,
Nick, you want to
do
give
that?
your thoughts?
Yeah.
While we get a weather report.
Yeah. I make this game Arizona State -2.5, but a lot of that number is going to be baked in from when Florida State was playing under Willie Taggart, when they were playing with like no motivation. I actually like Florida State quite a bit in this spot, and I've just been waiting for them to pop up in a couple of the books that I have availability to, but they haven't been there due to some there's like injury stuff going on. For example, Florida State does not have a healthy scholarship running back for this game. Luckily, running back is a position that's going to be one of the least important on the field, in my opinion, in modern day college football. So we talked about, Florida State under interim coach. They're playing much more inspired under him. And something that I want to point out is that Arizona State is one of those teams that is similar to Cal, similar to Sparty, where like we've talked about that I like Herm as a dog a lot more than I like him laying points. So I really like Florida State in a spot where it feels like nobody is picking Florida State. If they pop up in the books at any point here, I actually would like to take them money line in this spot.
Yeah, so this one's not watchable for me. I think the two best players in this game, Cam Akers is out for NFL draft stock, and then the other side of the Arizona State receiver, Ayuk, he's out for NFL draft stock. So I'm just gonna pass on this one. Probably not watch it. I also can't stand Gary Danielson. This is the one bowl game on CBS. Who's probably one of the losers of this season already for losing out on the SEC. And I'm just glad I don't have to hear Gary Danielson anymore, in the future, and not gonna watch this game at all.
Yeah, Danielson makes games hard to watch.
That's a positive for us going forward. So the high on that day is 53. So it would probably be high 40s or something like that when this game is played. I think that this game, kind of what Nick was saying, it's hard to lay points with Arizona State, and this is kind of a coin flippy game to me. So I decided that I would go with Florida State here.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so still on December 31st, we've got the Liberty Bowl in Memphis, Kansas State versus Navy. Nick, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think this game is actually going to be pretty watchable. I make this game Kansas State -1, so possibly some value in them with a few weeks to prep for the triple option here. The thing is, Kansas State's going to be able to throw it over Navy's secondary, their heads. Kansas State's actually been pretty decent at creating some passing explosives. I took the over at 52 because like I said, Kansas State, they're going to be able to throw it on Navy, but Kansas State's also been very poor against the run this year. And to be quite frank, I don't think the few weeks of prep time is going to matter quite as much. I still think Navy's going to find a lot of success against Kansas State on the ground. So I like this game to get up into the 60s. As far as the number, I mean, obviously, based on my numbers, I think there's a little value, like I said, in Kansas State. But I purely just like the over in this game, and I do think it's actually going to be a pretty watchable one.
Addison, your thoughts?
I would lean Navy here, mostly just because I'm a big Malcolm Perry fan.
Yeah, I like him too.
Cool. Yeah, this one's a pass for me. I think the teams are pretty even, so mildly watchable. But I'll move on to a game where I'm probably the only person that thinks this game is actually worth watching. So this is the Arizona Bowl in Tucson. On December 31st. It's Wyoming versus Georgia State. I have it as watchable just because every time I tune in to watch Wyoming, they're like still running off tackles from the I formation.
Yep.
Their tempo is really slow, and I don't know why. I just find that intriguing. They're playing a Georgia State team that is likes to run a really fast tempo, and I just think this is one of those games where if you have a slow tempo team that can work in bowl games, I favor the under here and just Wyoming's weird old school offense. Well, I think I'll watch this one. Nick, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think pretty much what you said. I actually wouldn't mind watching a little bit of this game. I make it Wyoming -6.5, so like obviously the number's pretty spot on. I do tend to lean towards the team that is able to slow tempo down. It's actually similar to when you watch like basketball. Like when North Carolina, when they're playing basketball, they're usually playing like very fast up tempo. And
like
whenever, so like whenever they play somebody that plays a lot slower, if that team is even close to like their talent level, which doesn't happen a ton since North Carolina is very good, but it tends to get the up tempo team out of rhythm, and like they aren't used to that. So I don't really see value in the number. It's a no bet for sure, but I probably would lean Wyoming if I had to, just kind of for reasons that Tolman and I both agree on.
Yeah, Addison, you gonna watch this one?
Pass. Total pass.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Well,
Nice.
how about I'll let you take I'll let you start on the next one, since this is to me the most watchable New Year's Day game. So New Year's Day, Citrus Bowl, we've got Michigan versus Alabama. Addison, what do you think?
Well, Michigan, I know their fans did not want to get this draw. I mean, Michigan, whenever they play an elite team, how does it turn out usually? So I would lean Bama here, provided that everyone plays and they want to be there. I think that they could win this game handily, and then Michigan fans will be touting their SAT scores afterwards.
Pathetic.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they're higher.
Yeah.
Yeah. you can Michigan. There's something that you can win. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go. Sorry. What's funny is I make this game Bama like -4, but here's the thing: is that I think my numbers and a lot of people's numbers are undervaluing Bama a little bit without Tua right now. Like I had him worth like 5.5 points, and that was based kind of mostly on a composite of like what I saw from other people and just kind of analyzing those numbers. But Mac Jones, in a small sample, I mean, he did very well as far as like being able to move the ball against Auburn, who I think has a more athletic and a little bit more of a talented defense than even Michigan has. So from everything I read, Saban has been on their asses in practice about the 2 duds that they laid in similar spots before when they weren't able to compete for a title. And the only 2 players I've seen that are going to sit out for Bama are on defense. So this could possibly be an over game as well at, I believe, 58.5. But I actually bet Bama, and it's a very public side, but the money has caught up in a way to where it's not like it's a bad public side. Like I think it's actually sharps and the public are on the same side here. All 4 wide receivers for Bama are playing in this game. We've seen Michigan recently against elite athletes on the perimeter. they're not going to be able to keep up. If Bama wants to be there, I'm very confident that Bama wins this game by multiple touchdowns.
Yeah,
the last time Bama had like a disappointing season, and they played the Citrus Bowl, they beat Michigan State 49-7.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of
it has that feel, man.
It's kind of the analogous situation, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet I agree with Nick. I bet Bama here. I got it at -7. I also think this game will go over 58.5.
Yeah.
I haven't really liked what I've seen from Bama's defense all year. Michigan's defense, lately has been kind of meh to me, especially against elite athletes. So definitely will be tuning into this game. Another good game that we have on New Year's Day. We've got the Outback Bowl in Tampa, Minnesota versus Auburn. Nick, I'll let you start on this one.
I make the game Auburn -5, so possibly some value with the Gophers. I actually think this game's really intriguing because Auburn, they definitely want to be there. Gus is really selling hard that if Auburn gets 10 wins with the kind of schedule they have, that's a big deal. And I agree. I think for who Auburn has to play, I think 10 wins is a very good season for them. And for Minnesota, on the flip side, they've had an amazing year. They could earn a big win against an SEC powerhouse. My question is going to be in the trenches in this game. Can Minnesota hold up on both lines? I think Auburn's the more talented team on both sides. I think if Minnesota's O-line can give Tanner Morgan just enough time, I do think Minnesota can create some big plays through the air. So I cautiously lean towards Minnesota if you can get it 7.5 or better. Anything less than that, though, I probably would lean Auburn in that spot.
Addison?
I think that Minnesota has the motivation edge here. I think that when you have PJ Fleck, you always have the motivation edge in any game. So in just the season they've had, they're really going to want to cap this off with a win. I mean, it's just typical Auburn season. For Minnesota, they don't get this many wins very often. So getting that cherry on top is a big deal for them. I would go with Minnesota to cover. I think Auburn's going to win the game. I think it'll be an entertaining game. I think Minnesota's balanced enough on offense to be able to score a little bit on Auburn's defense, but overall, I think Auburn's the better team. So definitely a very watchable game, and
agree.
7.5, I would take Minnesota.
Yeah, agree. Highly watchable for me. I think Minnesota has to prove that they can handle a power team. They didn't fare as well against Iowa and Wisconsin, but I do lean Minnesota. +7 right now. Gets into 7.5. I think I will bet this. Definitely looking forward to watching this game. Once we get past New Year's Day, we get a little bit of a lull again. January 2nd, we've got the Birmingham Bowl, Boston College versus Cincinnati. Real quick, I have this one as a not watchable. This is a pass. Andre Dillon's not playing for Boston College. I don't even who's coaching for Boston College. Some interim that is going to be replaced by Jeff Hafley. Blowout potential for UC here. Just not interested in this one at all. Addison, your thoughts?
I agree, and I'd say the watchability for a lot of these games goes down when they're played after January 1st.
Yeah.
So, it's like kind of the same thing. I would go Cincinnati here, and just not a very entertaining game. Not these teams don't appeal to me at all.
Yeah, Nick.
Same thing. I made the game Cincy -8, so not really any value in the number. I don't think BC is going to be able to do much offensively, just because stylistically UC is built to stop what BC does well. So I think Cincy wins the game just based on really Fickle having them motivated to actually be there for some reason, but I don't care at all about this game.
All right, so I think the next game might be a little bit more watchable. We've got the Gator Bowl January 2nd in Jacksonville. Tennessee versus Indiana. Nick, your thoughts?
Yeah, this one is pretty intriguing. We gave Tennessee, we've given them a lot of shit for about 4 years now, and second half of the year they actually have they actually played pretty well. You have to give them some credit. I make the game Indiana -3, so there might be some value on IU. The thing is that the line move from Indiana opening like -1.5, I believe, to now Tennessee being a 1.5 point favorite, it makes me want to pass on the game, and I can see why. Tennessee, they should be able to create some explosives versus Indiana's D, and Tennessee's defense, as bad as it had been for about a year and a half under Jeremy Pruitt, much improved over the back half of the season. They've been very good at not allowing teams to finish their drives. They've also limited big plays. So Tennessee could be one of those teams that the market just hasn't really caught quite up to yet at the end of the year here. It's a hard pass for me just because Tom Allen is similar to like PJ Fleck in a way where like you're going to want to run through a brick wall for him. I think Indiana has they're going to go all out in this game. They always do. They always play very hard against any team they play against. Tennessee, though, they may have found something at the end of the year here. I think that there's more talent on their roster overall. So this is a hard pass, but I definitely will be watching this game.
Addison, your thoughts?
The line is weird to me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Indiana is, like, are they not power rated above Tennessee in, like, just about everything?
I have them -3, and I think that's close to what a lot of people have them there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've seen. So I do think it's weird that they're an underdog. So it's kind of fishy there.
Yeah.
I think both teams are really going to want to be there for this game, especially Indiana. I think it's a huge game for Indiana. Definitely, the fact that it's a Big Ten SEC matchup adds to the watchability for me. So, from what I said, the line is weird, but I would lean Indiana just, for the reasons I said. I feel like most people have them power rated above Tennessee, but I don't know.
It's definitely watchable for me. This is like kind of one of those high motivation games where both teams stand a lot to gain. Tennessee could be the we're back team if they win this. Indiana could be the team that's like, okay, maybe 8 wins per season for them is sustainable. So, going to be a pass for me, but just the way things have gone for Tennessee, when you have expectations for Tennessee, they typically disappoint. So maybe that's why I could at the last minute go with Indiana.
I'm pretty sure Indiana with a win would tie their school record for wins in a season. Also,
yeah. That would be cool. That would be cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So a lot to play for them too.
Okay, a couple more quick lesser bowl games to get through. January 3rd, we got the Idaho Potato Bowl in Boise, Nevada versus Ohio. The first person to speak up gets to go first if anyone cares about this game.
I make the game OU -11.5, so the number is definitely short in my opinion. I can't imagine Nevada stopping OU's running game. This is one that I'm leaning towards possibly betting, but it's a game that I would bet and never watch.
Yeah, fair. Addison?
I don't know anything about these next three.
Yeah, all right. So this one's a not watchable.
Yeah.
I agree, Nick. I could see this being a blowout for Ohio just based on like the metrics, but
yeah, Nevada's terrible. Yeah.
I'll talk about this one because maybe I care about it because I have a piece of paper from Tulane. But January 4th, we got the Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth, Tulane versus Southern Miss. Both of these offenses are fun to watch, so there could be a lot of points. I would consider the over at 57. I'll probably watch this game if I'm not doing anything on January 4th. Addison, I guess you got nothing. Nick, anything on this one?
I do. I make this game Tulane -12, so I have no idea why the number is what it is, but I was able to get Tulane I believe it was -6 or 6.5. I can't remember, but I expect Tulane to fully exploit Southern Miss's trash D. Tulane, though, themselves, they've been prone to giving up some plays.
Leaky.
Yeah, so I actually, for some reason, I just didn't think about the total, Tolman. That number's quite low to me, in my opinion.
I love over 50. So I think I'm actually, now that we're talking it out, I think I'm going to click that right now.
Yeah, I'm going to probably bet that. But I did bet Tulane, before I got up to that key number 7. I think that they'll be able to do more than what Southern Miss will do. And I don't know how much of this game I'll watch, but I might, I don't know. I think I would tune in. It's the only game on that day, and it should be actually decently entertaining.
Sure. Okay. Last of the lessers, January 6th, the Lending Tree Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. We've got Louisiana versus Miami of Ohio. Nick, any thoughts?
The number's a little short, in my opinion. I think Miami, Ohio could find some success slowing down Louisiana's run game, but this is a hard pass for me. I don't have a great feel on this one. I have loved Louisiana all year, but I don't know. I don't think it's a very watchable game, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's one of those strong offense for Louisiana, pretty good defense for Miami, which sometimes makes for a good game.
Yeah.
I'd lean Miami, but it's mildly watchable for me.
Okay.
And I assume, Addison, do you have anything else on this? On any of these? Okay, cool. All right, so getting into the selection committee bowl games, we'll go back in the calendar a little bit. The real primer for the college football playoff on December 28th, we've got the Cotton Bowl at Jerry World. We've got Penn State versus Memphis. Addison, your thoughts on this game?
I don't know. This one's, I don't know, it's hard to say. I feel like it could be a high-scoring game, and that's not a great thing for Penn State. So I think Memphis could be a little bit surprised in this game. I think Penn State wins, but Memphis could cover here. I would take the 7 points probably.
Mm-hmm. Nick, your thoughts?
Yeah, I make Penn State -4.5. So if you can get 7, I say grab it. Penn State, they rank 84th in ISO PPP, which is like an advanced explosive stat. Basically, they can give up explosives, and their defense has been pretty good this year. But when they faced elite athletes, they are prone to getting torched, and that's what Memphis does. They are one of the most explosive offenses in the country. So even though this is one of those games where like Penn State definitely has more talent on the roster, and if they play their A game, I could see Franklin kind of putting his foot on the gas pedal at the end if they do have some kind of like 10-point lead or something. But I think Memphis is going to cover this number, and I actually think they have a chance to win this game. So I think there's definitely value in the number there.
I'm going to go against you guys. I like to call games when Franklin puts his foot on the gas on what he perceives to be a lesser team.
Yeah.
We'll find out if Memphis is indeed lesser, but I actually lean Penn State -6.5 here, and could see Franklin just trying to bully around a group of 5 team.
Sure.
But definitely a very, very watchable game, potential for a lot of points. The next game, the next New Year's 6 game is on December 30th in Miami. It's going to be the Orange Bowl, Virginia versus Florida. Nick, your thoughts on this game?
I'm not very interested in this game just because Virginia blows, but I make the game Florida -17.5. Maybe a little value in them there, I guess, but the thing is, like, it's tricky to cap Virginia because of how injury riddled that defense is now. I don't really see how Virginia scores on Florida, and I think Florida has the athletes offensively to exploit that what is a leaky Virginia defense. So it's quite the public play, but I would actually lean on that side, and I think this game, if Florida wants to be there, that's the biggest question. I think there's blowout potential there with that game.
Addison, your thoughts on the Orange Bowl?
I don't like this game.
Yeah.
I really wish they didn't have to stick to these bowl tie-ins in these kind of games. Like, to get a team like Utah in place of Virginia would have been a lot better.
Yeah.
I also thought this could be a good spot for Notre Dame too.
Yeah, that's
they're basically an ACC team. They should relax that rule and put them in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should. Yeah, they should count as an ACC team in that situation. But yeah, it's not an intriguing game to me. I think Florida will control this game, and it's probably not going to be very entertaining. Probably not close throughout. It's 14.5 right now, so I'd probably lean Virginia, but I don't know. It's probably just not going to be a very exciting game, I guess.
Yeah, not watchable for me. It feels like 38-17. Florida. I'll probably will bet Florida when the time comes, but definitely not watch the game.
Yeah, no, game sucks. Yeah.
So, in my opinion, I grew up. This is always my favorite game. This is going to be the most watchable New Year's 6 game, outside of the college football playoff. On New Year's Day, we've got the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, the granddaddy of them all, Wisconsin versus Oregon. I think this is a fascinating game. I think it's going to be the best line play that we're going to see. Similar styles, except Oregon maybe runs it a little bit more through the shotgun. Oregon's offensive line was very impressive against Utah. I think they have a chance to hold up against Wisconsin. I also see Herbert. He's got an opportunity to really improve his draft stock against a pretty good defense in Wisconsin. I would actually lean Oregon +3, and I will be glued to the TV set watching the Rose Bowl. Addison, your thoughts on the Rose Bowl?
Totally agree that this is definitely the best New Year's 6 game, one of the best bowl games in general. I think there's strength on strength on both sides of the ball here. I'm looking forward to the Wisconsin O-line against Oregon's D-line, and then vice versa, Oregon's O-line versus Wisconsin's D-line. Both these defenses at times this year have looked really good. They've had their moments where they haven't been so good, but at times that both of them, have been up there, metric-wise all year. So both of them have been really good. You got Jonathan Taylor and Justin Herbert, so both two big-name offensive players. There's lots to like about this game. Right now, I see Wisconsin -2.5 as the line, and that's the direction I would lean. But I think it's going to be an exciting game and a close game, so it should be a really entertaining game.
Yeah, one thing I want to add that my concern always with siding with Oregon is coaching. I felt like for the first time, Cristobal outcoached Whittingham in the Pac-12 championship game. So maybe if that's a trend that continues, I like Oregon's style of play. I like their talent. I just think coaching has always let them down a little bit. So a chance to prove, for Cristobal to prove himself again against another good coaching staff at Wisconsin. Nick, your thoughts on the Rose Bowl?
Yeah, actually, so that's something I kind of want to talk about is that with about 3 to 4 weeks of prep time, I think that's actually a pretty big advantage for Paul Chryst and his staff. Jim Leonard is an amazing defensive coordinator. I do not trust Marcus Arroyo as Oregon's offensive coordinator to be be prepared to face a coordinator like that.
Is he moving? Is he going to UNLV? Is he coaching this game?
I actually don't know, and if he's not, then maybe that's better for Oregon. But I think that I make this game pick, and so normally I would automatically think I would lean Oregon in the points. But the thing is that I do think there's a coaching mismatch with multiple weeks to prep, and based on how Wisconsin has looked recently, the changes they've made offensively as far as being more aggressive on first down, they're passing more play action, they're letting Cohen air it out a little bit more. Oregon looked great against Utah. We gave them a lot of credit. That was the best game they played all year. That's the team that should have shown up all year. I just cannot trust them and their staff in this spot with that many weeks to prep. So I like how the changes, like I said, that Wisconsin's made recently offensively. I think that I definitely lean them at 2.5 and am considering just betting them in that spot.
Yeah, so Arroyo is coaching, and he is also the head coach at UNLV.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Good point about Wisconsin's coaching too, because I thought they did a great job in the Big Ten championship game
against Minnesota too.
I feel like they get the most out of their talent. So I agree with you on the coaching edge there.
Yeah.
I would normally think that. I guess I'm drinking a little bit of Cristobal Kool-Aid right now.
I'm surprised that you are. Yeah.
I want Oregon to be good, and I think if they had better coaching, they would be. And maybe here's a chance.
I think it'll be a good game. Yeah, I'm excited to watch it. I think it's gonna be a very watchable game for sure.
Yeah. So the evening game on New Year's Day, after we're no longer hungover, hopefully, it's going to be the Sugar Bowl at the Dome in New Orleans. We've got Baylor versus Georgia. Nick, your thoughts on the Sugar Bowl?
I kind of hope I am hungover for this one, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I make the game Georgia -6, so there's not really value there, but I lean Baylor hard just because it's just purely motivation. Georgia is not in the game that they wanted to be in all year. I think it's very arguable that I know they had some injuries that played a part in this, but I think their offensive coaching staff cost them a shot at a national title this year. And Matt Rule is a great coach. I think Baylor's playing kind of above their talent level right now, and they have all year. But yeah, just purely motivation, I would lean Baylor. I actually took the under at 42.5. I can't see either of these teams really creating big plays in this game, and I just think it's going to be ugly and quite frankly terrible to watch.
Addison, any differing thoughts?
Not really. I do think that this is possibly the biggest disparity in motivation. Like Baylor is going to be way more up for this game than Georgia. Like we saw how Georgia looked last year. They're in the exact same scenario this time around. And Baylor to get back into this kind of bowl game is going to be huge for them. But really, I'm not excited about this game at all. So I would lean Baylor, but it's not really, for a 7 versus 5 game. It's just not appealing to me at all.
Yeah, I can't believe it, but this one also made. Well, I can't believe it, but this one also made my not watchable list. We have 2 out of 6 New Year's 6 bowl games that are on our unwatchable list.
Yeah.
Agree with the motivation disparity. I actually 100% agree this will be an ugly game because of the motivation disparity. I actually bet Baylor. I got him at +7.5. Though I think that's come that is it minus? Is it 6.5 now?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it pretty early. It just felt like Baylor on the motivation, and they could stay in an ugly game. And to kind of sum this all up, I think we kind of agree that the low motivation teams of all these bowls are we've got Hurricanes, we've got Texas, we've got Georgia, we've got Sparty. The high motivation teams, we've got the Gophers, the Hoosiers, we've got Baylor, Tennessee, and Mac Brown in North Carolina. So I think that's a reasonable summary for all these bowl games that, sorry guys, they actually don't matter.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to pass the talking pillow back to Nick to talk about and go deep into the games that do matter.
Yeah, so we'll start with the Peach Bowl since it is the earlier game. LSU is currently, I believe, in most every book minus 13.5. We are going to get a little bit deeper into these games just because these are the playoff games. We've watched these teams the most. I'll go right now real quick. I make this game -8, so I definitely think it's a little inflated. If a +14 pops up in the books again, I tend to lean Oklahoma there. Even with the suspensions they have, those are some guys that do play a lot of snaps. But look, here's the thing, guys, and I'll go to I guess Tolman next after me here, but I owe Oklahoma's going to have to steal a couple possessions, just period, in this game. I think LSU is going to be able to score at will on these guys, even if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is in fact out of this game. I've been trying to get updates on that, but Jalen.
So the update that I have is he actually made the trip So that's positive direction for him.
Yeah, and he's very important to what they do.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the most underrated players in the country. So
He's like a Marshall Falk type.
he really is. Yeah, I think the key in this game is Jalen Hurts has to
or Kevin Falk.
yeah Kevin Falk
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts has to take care of the ball, and they got to steal some possessions. And if I'm Lincoln Riley, I try to get Hurts running in this game. I think if OU can establish their will on the ground, keep the ball from Burrow and company as much as possible, then that gives them a fighting chance in this game. But they're going to have to steal some possessions to have a chance to win this game. But I would lean Oklahoma at 14. If anything worse than that, I just no play on this.
The fact that Jalen Hurts finished second in the Heisman voting tells me that the majority of the Heisman voters don't watch any of the games and they just look at stats.
Yeah.
Because when you watch Jalen Hurts in big games, he's sloppy, he's careless, he turns the ball over, and I just didn't get that. So if that continues to happen, I don't think Oklahoma has a chance. LSU's defense is much improved as of late. I was looking at some of the Bill Connolly advanced box scores. They are holding opponents to less than a 10% success rate on passing downs in their last 3-4 games. So that's something that has improved significantly throughout the year. So I think Oklahoma on offense they can't turn the ball over. They have to be efficient and then pop an explosive play with CeeDee Lamb to keep up with LSU because I don't think their defense is going to stop LSU.
Yeah, Addison, your thoughts?
Well, I'm just going to repeat something you guys mentioned. If Oklahoma turns the ball over at all in this game, then it's over.
Yeah.
And they have not been good defensively at creating turnovers either, so that's definitely a problem too. Lincoln's going to have to come up with something really good for this game offensively. Because they're going if they win, it's going to have to be in a shootout. Towards the end of the season, Jalen was just kind of shouldering the load as far as the running game goes. And then they've got Kennedy Brooks too, but Sermon's out for the year, and then their other backup running back is suspended for this game, so they're going to be thin at running back here. Although LSU they're not great against the run. They are really good in the secondary. And I think they've improved a lot as the year has gone on. And I think that they're defensively, LSU is playing as good as they have all year right now, or at least at the end of the season. So, I really like how they've been there. The secondary's been really good. Stingley, Del Pitt, and the other guy who's across from Stingley at corner,
Christian Fulton.
Yeah, all three of them have been really good, especially towards the end of the year. So, Oklahoma obviously they are one of the better running teams they're one of the best running teams in the country. They're going to have to be able to keep that going in this game. I think people are sleeping on Oklahoma a lot here, though, because literally no one is giving them a chance to win this game. I agree with Nick that I think this line is off by quite a bit. Although the suspensions make me hesitate a little bit, I still think that Oklahoma is the right side. And right now it's 14 on Bovada, so you can still get it at 2 full touchdowns. I'll probably make that play, honestly. LSU is such a heavy public side right now. I think that Oklahoma will be able to get some points. That's kind of how I see the game going. I think LSU is going to win, but I don't think it's going to be like a blowout or anything like some people think. Also, something I just want to mention about LSU, it seems like they just by default got all of the postseason individual player awards.
Yeah, I mean they definitely did, and there were some guys that were certainly deserving. There were others, Grant Delpit, that weren't. Um,
Yeah. Well, another thing that I thought was they got the Joe Moore award also for the best O line. Like to be like all four of the offensive lines in the playoff are really good.
Yeah.
But I think LSU has the worst O line of all four of these teams.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of interesting.
That's
They
just
got
kind
that
of
one.
crazy to me. I think it's kind of just being the number one team gets you that kind of love, I guess. So
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's just a random thought that I had. So
Yeah. Well, I think we all agree that LSU is gonna move on to the national title game. But I agree, Addison. I think there's a chance that Oklahoma can make it interesting. They got to take care of the ball. If they don't, then I would agree with Tolman that this game this could get out of hand if that happens.
yeah,
So,
I mean, they just can't get in a situation obviously like last year.
Yeah.
Where against Bama, if they were down 28-0 before you could like even blink, and then
Right.
They actually kind of made it interesting at the end. They got within a couple touchdowns, but they can't let that happen. If this is going to be a game at all, they just have to try and match LSU score for score.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So yeah, we have LSU moving on. It seems like Addison and I lean Oklahoma if you can get it at 14. Tolman, are you leaning like if you can get LSU under 14, you like them then?
I'm only not. I'm probably more on your side just because I don't want to be on such a public side.
Yeah.
Backdoor potential like there was last year. If LSU jumps out if LSU gets up big, and they can coast and not have to put anything on tape. I always talk about that. Like if you have the opportunity to not put things on tape, then they're not going to care about the spread.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So it seems like we kind of lean Oklahoma against the number, but we do think LSU is going to move on to the national title game to play either OSU or Clemson. And obviously, on this podcast, we have a more vested interest in this game. Tolman, I'm going to let you be the one to start here. Clemson is -2 pretty much across the board. Your thoughts as far as just talk about what you want to talk about, pretty much.
Sure. Okay. So the two things that concern me the most as an Ohio State fan is if OSU tackles the way they did against Wisconsin, Michigan, and Penn State. I think Travis Etienne could have a field day, and that could be very, very bad for us. The Clemson receivers are huge. They have the biggest catch radius of any wide receivers I've ever seen. Justin Ross, T. Higgins, and then another guy that y'all need to watch out for isn't as heralded, but Overton, number 14.
Yeah.
That dude's another huge target. This is going to be the biggest test for an Ohio State secondary that is finally going to be healthy. And I think who wins those 50-50 balls is going to be the key to the game. But in my mind, the biggest key to the game is Ohio State's defensive line, number one in the country in sack rate, versus a Clemson defensive line that they've been somewhat untested. Just not a lot of competition this year. Really nothing given in the ACC. The best defensive line that they played was Virginia, and I think they allowed double-digit havoc plays to Virginia. So we'll see if Clemson's offensive line is as real as their metrics say they are. But I'm predicting that Ohio State's defensive line will win this battle.
Okay, yeah. Tolman, we got technical difficulties. Let me try to get Addison back on the line here real quick.
Sure. Do you want me to just keep talking? I can talk about when Ohio State has the ball.
Well, because I think it's gonna put you on hold. So just give me a second here.
That's fine.
Let's see. Sorry to you listeners here. I'm gonna get.
Can we edit this out?
I mean, I could, but it makes the video super delayed as far as production, so it's not a big deal. Nobody's gonna care. Let me see if we can get him on here. This is embarrassing. Addison, you back? You back?
Yeah, if you can hear me.
Yeah. Let me get Tolman back on the line. All right.
All right.
All right, Tolman, you still there?
I'm back.
All right. So
I never left.
yeah, Tolman
Did we all
had.
get dropped?
Yeah. You're good. All right, so Tolman had a good breakdown as far as Addison. He talked about, obviously, I think you heard when he was talking about Clemson's playmakers and that their offensive line has been very good all year, but we think possibly untested. We think OSU's D-line could win that battle possibly. But Addison, do you have any additional thoughts as far as when Clemson has the ball, and then you can just talk about whatever you want after that?
Well, what concerns me most is their passing game and their receivers. I mean, they've got 3 receivers that are 6'4". Yeah. I feel like if you don't get pressure on Lawrence, like you're just totally fucked. So I mean, obviously OSU's got as good a chance as anyone of stopping that, just because the pass rush and the secondary's been really good this year. We play a lot of guys; they've all played really well. So I definitely think that when you look at these two teams, they're so similar, like statistically. Like their O lines have both been elite. I'd say these are the top 2 O lines in the country. Clemson's hasn't been, like you said, they haven't been tested. They haven't really had to, assert their will in the fourth quarter like Ohio State has had to do in a few games at the end of the year, where we decided we're going to take over, and our O line just, our O-line and Dobbins just kind of wills this team to wins at the end of game, and just kind of wear down the other team's D-line. Clemson hasn't had to do that this year. So yeah, I don't know. That's what I kind of see as far as Clemson when they had the ball.
Okay, yeah. I have kind of the same concerns as far as OSU. The thing is, when OSU's been beat in the passing game this year, it's actually been mostly by like tight ends, running backs. Like it's been against the linebackers. I think Okudah, Arnett, they've actually done a very good job against most of the better receivers they faced. They haven't faced receivers like this. So I think Clemson will find some success, certainly through the air at times, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as some people think it's going to be. Travis Etienne, Etienne's going to be the X factor here. If Ohio State can limit his explosive runs, then I think you'll possibly find that that's going to be one of the key factors in this game. But OSU, when they happen to let a running back get into the second level, they tend to break off some big ones, and he's the type of guy that can break a game open with one run. So that is the biggest concern for me, is his ability to bust it open there. But certainly going to be a just titanic matchup in the trenches as far as Clemson's O-line versus that OSU D-line. And, do they try to have Carmen Jackson and these guys one-on-one against Chase Young, or do they, I think, do the smart thing and slide protection towards him? The other OSU, members of that, the rushmen, the defensive line, they're going to have to come up with their biggest games of the season here.
Yeah, Nick, just I feel like our worst tackling game, honestly, was the Big Ten championship. Also.
Yeah.
Like the first time we played Wisconsin, we totally shut down their run game, and then the second game, we let Taylor break some big runs that were huge in that game.
Let Jack come get a juke on us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that didn't end as well for him.
Yeah, he got killed though. Yeah.
We still think he's dead, and we still don't know if he's alive.
Yeah.
You know what? I forgot about that. I might have to bet Oregon because he might be dead. So, yeah.
We've gone through a few weeks since the last podcast. We have no confirmed reports that he's alive.
Right,
so
right.
Still might be in Indianapolis.
I feel like if it's just Chase Young, it's like if they really try to block Chase Young one-on-one, he's going to have a huge speed edge there. So yeah. I don't think that's going to work. I'd like to see them try.
Yeah.
But, Nick, I agree with you that – and hopefully another thing about this is for like the last 3 or 4 games of the Big Ten season, they just decided to stop calling holding penalties.
Right.
So maybe us getting out of Big Ten play works out better for Chase Young because, I mean, there were some outrageous no calls in some of those games, like against Michigan and Wisconsin.
You've also got with Jonathan Cooper, taking that red shirt, like he's not playing in this game. You've got Tyreek Smith and you've got Zach Harrison that are getting all the number 1 reps now. So they're, it's almost like they're, Smith is now a junior and Harrison's now a sophomore. But so that could be a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. Let's switch to when OSU has the ball here. So, Addison, you want to go first this time?
Well, I mean, the obvious thing that everyone's going to point to is Fields holding on to the ball too long, taking sacks. Both these teams really good at getting after the quarterback. I think they're probably the top 2 in the country in terms of sack rate.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, so that's going to be. We're definitely going to have to avoid that. You don't want to take those drive-killing type of sacks. Although OSU's passing game, we generate a lot of big plays from it. Once we get going, get some first downs. Day is really good at taking his spots on play action and just taking advantage, going over top and getting big plays. It's definitely good. We needed to get some guys healthy, like Fields. I definitely think Fields looked limited in the Big Ten championship. He just wasn't as mobile. Wisconsin put a lot of pressure on him, and he wasn't comfortable. He was taking a lot of sacks in the first half. So hopefully everything is good with him. I think he's going to be 100% for this game. The last 3 games, Dobbins was averaging he got over 30 carries in all 3 of those games. So you see what Ohio State's offense really is in the games that mattered. It's a smash mouth offense, 100%. And we were able to do it in the second half of the games. We wore teams down. And then, the passing game, we supplement that with our passing game really well. And then, Fields, as far as his running ability, at this point in the season, we may see him running more than we've seen all season just because now that it's the playoff, we kind of just we're kind of opening up the whole playbook. Don't have to worry as much about him getting hurt anymore. So it'll be interesting to see if we see more of that in these games. Hopefully, multiple games.
Last game of the season, can't hold anything back now.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Tolman, go ahead.
No, you got anything to finish up on?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think Fields being stated as fully healthy, will open up the entire playbook. It's going to come down to will. Ryan Day said that, in the third quarter of the Big Ten championship game, there were offensive players coming off the field with tears in their eyes because of how they were inspired by, Fields playing when he was hobbled and J.K. Dobbins just carrying the big load. So if Ohio State plays that inspired, I think they're going to Clemson, break some tackles against a fantastic Clemson team. Make some big plays in the passing game against a Clemson secondary that is always very, very physical, and bully around a Clemson defensive line that, to their credit, has absolutely reloaded after they lost some major NFL talent. So all in all, this is going to be an amazing game. It's going to be really, really close. I cannot wait, as both a fan of college football and an Ohio State fan, to sit down and just take all this in. It's going to be awesome. That's probably one of the best college football semifinal games we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, make the game pick 'em, basically. I think these are the 2 best and most complete teams this year. At least I think that Clemson is a little harder. They're kind of hard to cap just because a lot of it's based on what they did last year and a lot of the same guys this year. And but they've really played 13 nobodies this year. And That makes it tough. With opponent adjusted data, though, they metrically they're up there. Them and OSU are the two best teams, and LSU's up in that tier finally now. But I do think Clemson and OSU are just a tad bit better. Um, I think there's a couple big things here that I'm gonna be totally straight with you guys. When right after OSU won the game, and I saw the line, I kind of thought like if I was a neutral fan or if I didn't like these teams or I wasn't a fan of them or whatever, I would have leaned Clemson, I think. But the more I dug into the game, um, the more I thought about kind of something, Addison, you pointed out that OSU is the team that has an edge as far as having to deal with some adversity this year, having to play a full game. Um, I think that it could be a little bit of a shock to Clemson's system if they did get kind of punched in the mouth at any point, and let's say OSU does have like a 10 or 14 point lead. I think that's something that's pretty important to note. I also think that one of the biggest, like most intriguing kind of matchups on the field, in my opinion, is Clemson's defensive line is very talented, very fast and athletic, but compared to last year, a lot smaller. They're pretty undersized, actually. They're only 5 pounds heavier on average than what Michigan's defensive line was, and OSU pushed around Michigan's defensive line like they're a bunch of high schoolers. Um, I think OSU's three interior linemen, Myers, Jonah Jackson, Wyatt Davis, I think they're going to create some holes. And I think Fields being healthy with his legs, I think he and Dobbins are going to be able to do something on the ground pretty special. And as the weeks have gone on now, it went from OSU being like this unbreakable juggernaut to all of a sudden they are this flawed team because they played some good teams and they had some moments where those other teams did some things. And but I think that this feels like a spot now where like it feels like a lot of people are just on Clemson all of a sudden, and OSU, even though it's been under Urban Meyer, they traditionally as an underdog with a chip on their shoulder have been a team that you just don't want to mess with. So um, I really think that OSU is going to win this game, and I really think that they're going to run the ball down Clemson's throats. I think they're going to limit Clemson's possessions. I think Clemson's going to find success on offense, but I think that we are going to frustrate Lawrence. I think there's going to be some times where that pocket's collapsing when it hasn't been like that for him all year. Um, I really respect Clemson's team and the program, but I definitely think that OSU is going to win this game and face LSU in the title. So, what do you guys think as far as the number and just who wins the game?
I just hope we'll be previewing Ohio State for the Natty on the next podcast.
Yeah, right.
Not even thinking about it from a betting standpoint.
Okay, yeah. Addison, you think OSU's going to win the game? I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we win. I think it's going to be an epic game. I agree with you. I think these are the two best teams. LSU's a close third.
Yeah.
But this is.
Yeah, I think a lot of.
I can't see this not being a great game. Just some other thoughts. Clemson. I think Clemson knows what we're going to want to do offensively, and I really respect Venables as a defensive coordinator, one of the best defensive coaches in college football. We love Day offensively, so it's going to be really fun to see that dynamic in game. Ohio State's been really good at making game adjustments. We've seen us kind of explode in the second quarter of a lot of games this year, so it's going to be interesting to see what kind of stuff goes on in game and just how the teams kind of prepare for what the other team does well. So
yeah, I mean it should be a really good game either way. So but we're hoping on this pod, well, at least amongst us three, that OSU pulls it off. So yeah, any final thoughts, Tolman?
Happy bowl season and holidays to everyone. I hope you enjoy time with your families and watching these awesome games, especially the Ohio State Clemson game. That's going to be epic.
Yeah, Addison?
Just go Bucks.
Yeah, man. Yeah, certainly from our podcast, as Tolman said, happy holidays, happy bowl season. Hopefully we gave you guys some good insight as far as some games to bet, some games that are very watchable, games that you should avoid altogether, and you should just suck it up and talk to your family members or in-laws at your holiday parties. But yeah, should be an exciting bowl season, and this will be hopefully a playoff to remember. So we will be back post the or post like playoffs. We're gonna preview the national title game and probably give a little recap on some stuff. Obviously, try to give maybe a little bit of a betting angle on that national title game as well, and then we'll go from there. So we'll see you guys on the next pod.